And good evening, our fellow lovers of love, and thank you for joining us on this excursion down the river of. Oh, you messed me up. You're sitting. I had it. Then you started getting. Ah! You're killing me over here. You really are. I actually had it. I was practicing it in our bathroom just minutes before. You gotta come out here.
Okay, wait, go ahead.
Well, no, it's too late now because now I'm laughing. Because of the stream of consciousness, the river of tranquility, and onto the lake of love, blah, 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 blah. I think I had done like 3 in a row that were good, and I completely botched that one. Oh, well, such is life. Thank you, guys, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's going to be an interesting show, apparently. We've got, unlike usual, I didn't actually put a theme together, so we've got another Saturday night grab bag of love, life, relationships, etc. So it should be interesting. Anything on there you particularly looking forward to today, love?
I like the 12 rude revelations about sex.
Oh, so you just want to start? We'll start right off the top. You just
jump right in.
Good for that one. Yeah. Hey, why not? Right?
Yeah.
Keep it light. Even though sex is not always
a light
subject, which is actually oddly enough kind of the first things in the top of the discussion. And so, well, let's just jump right into it, because I'll save my philosophical meanderings while you are on break. We'll try that. We'll try a different bit of it. So, 12 rude revelations about sex. It's an article in Psychology Today. So it's not one of our normal hipsy-dipsy, very, how a lot of times we use mental health centered, or
mighty.
Yeah, mental health for the mighty, or we use other sources that are more, along our hippie lines, shall we say, right? They kind of have the hippie vibe to them, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But on this particular subject about sex, oddly enough, we're using Psychology Today. Source, and I looked at it today. Oh, Psychology Today. Normally that's the kind of thing I use for my political discussions, not our life, love, and relationship topics. Not that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's, in my mind, it triggers a different response because of my history of what I also other do. So before we head into that, though, I want to remind ourselves that you can send your lovey letter at love@latenightlove.us, and we can answer your life, love, and relationship questions as best we can. And you can visit us at love@latenightlove.us. And you can find us every Saturday night, 10 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, or just go to our website and we have it there. But you can also find us on all the various social media platforms and your favorite podcast network. Okay, all of that business out the way. Please comment, like, subscribe, all the various things that you do on whichever various platform you are listening on. It would give us a boost that we're actually doing something, even though we're continuing to grow on pure organic growth. Every week, we grow a little bit.
Yay, thank you for your support.
Yeah, it's continue growing. All right, even though we did take a little bit of a downturn when I was sick, but that's, I suppose, should be expected. We were kind of skimming along, barely doing the minimum, and now we're getting back up to speed as I start to pick up.
Okay, great.
Feeling healthy. Okay, so right off the top, why do most people lie about their true desires? That's actually an easy one to answer.
That's an easy one. Well, you feel, like you're afraid.
Well, so you're afraid of being rejected, fundamentally. You're afraid not just a fear of being different, but with your loved one, it's a fear of being rejected, which is why you can have all kinds of weird sex with a stranger, but you don't even want to talk about it with your spouse. Because who cares if a stranger rejects you? You don't give a crap about them. There's no emotional connection. It's a pure physical thing. With your spouse, you don't want to. It's the emotional connection you fundamentally care about. And having be rejected is, catastrophic to your psychology. And so it actually makes sense that you'd be more afraid to talk to those innermost kind of, strangest desires to the people who you care about the most, because those are the people who can hurt you the most by rejecting you. Some freak on the internet, who cares? They self-select out. It doesn't matter. But your spouse, the person you actually have an emotional attachment to, the person you want to care, to love you and think good, positively about you, and to find out that you're got, I don't want to degrade any particular.
Yeah, but early on, it can be a deal breaker. I was dating someone once, and I asked, "What are you into?" And he's like, "Oh, I really can't tell you." And I'm like, "Well, then I really can't help you." No, if you're not gonna talk.
Well, and that's also part of the thing. If your sexual identity, desires, and identity are that tied together, then you have to have that conversation. Some people, their sexuality and their identity aren't that tied together. They can lose their kind of freaky side, not engage in it, and not feel like you've lost something. While other people do. You say, I've gained far more than I've lost, so whatever. But other people, they can't, that loss is too big of a loss. And so they have to find someone who is more sexually compatible than others. And it's, again, the world is not simple. It's not a binary choice. It's all these weird shades of the wonderful rainbow. And, finding your particular person is difficult. But being dishonest, because part of the problem is you start to be dishonest with yourself. That's really the problem, is you think you can live without it if you can't.
That is a tough one to call.
Yeah. And it changes in your life. The older you get, the less important these things can become. Not necessarily always, but it can become. You've got hormones and stuff driving your sexual desires, interest in something new. Once you've kind of done everything, you've kind of been there, you've done that.
Curiosity isn't there.
The curiosity is killed, the newness is killed, and so you settle down into your favorite four or whatever it is. And as long as your partner's fine with that, it's hunky dory. But it's fear of rejection, and it's a real fear. But you try to be as honest as possible. I don't judge people too harshly on keeping some of these things private, but who goes there by judge and all that? What's that phrase that I just completely butchered? There's a saying that I just will move on.
But then again, it can be devastating.
Yeah.
To a partner. Yeah. Sometimes I chat with a gentleman. He came out to his wife that he was bisexual, and they are now getting a divorce.
Well, the need to practice the bisexuality is different than being theoretically bisexual.
Right. Well, this was something he was interested in. He wanted to just start exploring it.
He was feeling like he had lost something. Yes. Whatever, there wasn't a replacement. Hey, you watch a show that is fundamentally like that. They have great actors on it. What's the name of the show?
Grace and Frankie.
Yeah, it's a great cast. They have great acting. I don't like the show, but I have, you give credit where credit is due. When people are good at their craft and do it well, you don't have to particularly like the end result to appreciate the work and effort and talent and all that.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to entertainment. It's not my thing. Doesn't mean it's not done well. I can appreciate.
It's one of my favorite background shows. I put it on to just have something playing in the background, and I can tune in when I want to, and I have my favorite parts, and
Yeah, but the whole thing is fundamental about people not being honest about their sexuality and relationships.
Yes, for 20 years, it's about two couples, and the husband's had an affair for 20 years, and then they took them to a restaurant and they told them they decided they wanted to get married. They were going to leave their wives. And then the story is what happens after that.
Yeah, but the point is, it's common. It is so common that we actually make TV shows about it now. And it's good that we can start to talk about these things, that you should have these conversations earlier, because you can cause a lot of pain if you don't. And not intentionally, accidentally on purpose. Literally accidentally on purpose. Yeah, you just make these decisions, but you don't really mean to cause pain. You just, what a tangled web we weave, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Why is sex more difficult to talk about in this era? Not less.
Is it more difficult? I don't think it's more difficult.
I don't think it's more difficult. I think it feels more difficult because we're more open to talk about it, and it's fundamentally uncomfortable. So it actually feels more difficult. And we have deeper conversations about it. We have conversations that, people in our grandparents' generation wouldn't have. I grew up in a household that had, all three Joy of Sex books on the bookshelf just sitting there. It was like a normal thing. So, for me, I kind of live in a different world than a lot of I lived in a different world than a lot of people when it came to sex. It's always been relatively open. Even if you didn't talk about it, it wasn't hidden. And so, but there's a lot of people like that. And I just think it just seems more overwhelming today than it is, because we come across, the more we talk about it, the more conflict we're going to have. Different people are going to have different views. And so it feels harder to talk about, despite the fact that we're actually talking about it more, which means it's easier to talk about. It's the strange oxymoron thing. It feels harder to talk about precisely because we're talking about it more. And because we're talking about it more, there's more conflict in the discussion, which makes it feel harder to talk about.
Uh-huh.
But it's not, because we're talking about it more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of these things that it feels a way, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true, I would argue. All right. What's next?
How is sex a great lie detector?
Wait, where did you pass? Did I miss something?
It's between the two cucumbers.
Why are those two cucumbers there? I don't understand. Someone needed a picture, so they put cucumbers in there. I don't get it. Okay, how is sex? Okay. Well, all right, I get it.
Well, you can't fake a sexual reaction.
Well, no, but the body sometimes does its own thing. Especially when you're a young male. You don't have to necessarily like the person to have a sexual attraction to them as a young man.
Really?
No. Hormones don't work that way. Sorry, it just doesn't. I don't know if it works. I can't discuss the women's perspective, but from a man's perspective, a light breeze just works that way. And so it's not as great of a lie detector as they say it is. I get the theory. It's just not as universal as I think they want to think it is, which is why it's a short segment. I mean, now it can help you understand yourself, maybe. Hey, that's a surprise. Maybe I do like that guy wearing the fireman's outfit. You know, maybe there's the trigger, but I don't think it can tell other people the truth. Maybe it can make you kind of face your own truth. But I don't know if it can tell anybody else the truth. So maybe it can help you. But I don't know. Just seems so really simplistic. In my lifetime of experience, it seems like an overly simplistic.
Overly simplistic reason. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This one. What is the lure of sex in the back of an airplane? Other than the spoked fact you're not supposed to do it. What's the lure?
Well, some people like the risk of getting caught.
Well, yeah, okay, and that's the only thing I can understand.
It's
that
not.
one, I can kind of understand
it. That's not one of my things.
I mean, it can't really feel good because how can it? You can't take the time.
You can't even get undressed.
Anyway, yeah, it's one of those things. It's like sex in the shower. It's one of those things that sounds a lot sexier than it actually is.
Well, it depends on the shower. If you have a big oversized shower, then yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe if you're standing out in an open field during a nice warm summer rain, okay.
Oh, that's so romantic.
Yeah, that might be romantic, yes. But sitting there in a standard in a standard household bathroom, I don't care if you even got a big shower, it's not going to be comfortable. And water is not as good lubricant. God, can we just shower and go to things? Or before we shower, do our business and then go clean ourselves. I don't care which, just...
Yes, I know. You were a sport. You tried it for me a couple times, and then you gave up. Especially with this low flow shower head. I'm not going to put you through it.
No, you get cold if you're the one behind and not in the water. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So here's another one. Why is not tonight, dear, so destructive? Now this is actually an interesting question.
Yes.
So why is it destructive? Do you have what was their take on it?
Well, I read it. Their take was on it that, suffering, well, it says right here, suffering rejection by the person with whom we have pledged to share our life is much odder and more humiliating, than that from a stranger. Here again.
Yeah. The fear, because it's the fear of being rejected. It's not that one night I'm not in the mood. Can we, that's not necessarily destructive. I think when they're talking about when it happens, kind of repeatedly and mindlessly, almost maybe, because you don't want to turn sex into a chore for somebody else either, because that's no fun. That has its own destructive.
Right.
So we're not talking about a mutually exclusive thing here. It's not one or the other. You've got this dynamic where you don't want to coerce or force another person to feel like sex is a chore or they're doing it, but at the same time we do things for the pleasure of our partners all the time. We do things we don't want to do so our partner can feel better about themselves, feel better about their day. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
And
we do.
Well, people do all the time. We just don't think about sex in the same way we think about buying flowers or taking a trip or all the various other things we do to make our spouses happy. Because it's, in a sense, it's more personal. Maybe we should think about it more like that. But we don't. And we know where it comes from, because for most of human history, all except the last, probably not even 1% of human history, sex has been about procreation. That's it. There's no time. Life was too short and too hard for anything else. You had multiple children because...
Oh, come on.
No. You had multiple...
What about the world's oldest profession?
Yeah. Well, but that's... That happens because young men specifically have hormones that need to be released, and smartly, young women won't give it to them, so there's professionals for that. That's a psychological, biological reason. It's a biological reason for it. Young people have a need for sexual release. Young women specifically aren't going to, in the past, we're going to give up their one thing that makes them unique, special, and valuable. We're going to give it up willy-nilly. And so you have professional women for that. Now, nowadays, those things are going away because the need for procreation and your ability to procreate is your value is no longer valid.
Yeah.
So it's a huge step for all of humanity, quite frankly. But biology's going to take a long time to catch up to the reality of humanity. Evolution is a slow process, and cultural evolution is quick. So we'll get there. We'll adjust. It's just the body will always be behind the culture. The biological pushes will always be behind the cultural pushes. And sometimes significantly. And that's when it becomes hard. So, not to knock yours because it becomes rejection, but, it has to be balanced with you don't want to feel like sex is a chore.
Sure, right.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing. Now, this is the one that I found actually interesting when I kind of did the reading on it. Why is impotence an achievement? And that's kind of it's a good philosophical question, to be honest. If sex comes to a point where you no longer actually need it in a relationship to be valid, it actually is an achievement.
I'm not getting it.
From a you remember, this is a psychological perspective, not from a clinical psychologist perspective.
Mm-hmm.
They're viewing it as if your relationships, your body has decided that your sexuality is no longer important in the relationship, therefore it's given it up.
Oh.
I'm not entirely sure it's a valid point because a lot of these, but maybe it is. Maybe some part of your subconscious has decided, I've made my children, I've done the thing, I'm generally satisfied in my life, so I don't need that part of me anymore. I can go concentrate on all this other stuff that gives me more value. And if we assume that that's the case, then that would be an achievement.
This usually happens later in life, though.
Yeah. Well, when you've accomplished all those things and you're satisfied psychologically, and you've accomplished all that that only happens. It doesn't happen at 20. It just doesn't. There's nothing wrong with being 20. It's just you can't achieve that at 20 years old. You don't even know what the hell that is at 20 years old yet, even if you think you do. You just don't. Because you've still got 50, 60 years left. All right, so what's next?
What do religions know about sex that we don't?
Well, that was an interesting question. The way is that religions actually value sex, something to be protected and preserved. And so they do have kind of a point. I think they may carry it to a bit of an extreme.
Yeah, that's a bit of an extreme statement.
But we also have to remember that STDs existed back in the day. And how do you prevent STDs from running rampant through a community without having condoms and modern medical? You don't, except
abstinence.
It's the only way to do it.
Abstinence. Yeah,
it's the only way to do it. How do you promote abstinence with animals that have this burning desire to put the fear of God in people? It's what humans do for all of humanity. and you want them to behave, you put the fear of God into them. And there's a valid reason for it, right? Especially in small communities. You get strange, Joe sleeping with Bob's wife, and Bob's wife sleeping with, Sam over there. And next thing you know, you've got STDs running through the whole goddamn community. It happens today.
Yeah.
We can just treat these things. Now imagine what would happen back in the days when you had no treatment for these things.
People got sick.
You could wipe out a whole community.
They died.
Yeah, there's a reason. There's a reason lives were short. It wasn't all because hangnails would kill you. It's the same thing as today. Does marriage ruin sex? No. But I like their point. What marriage changes is it changes the environmental conditions that you operate in, so to speak. So it's not that marriage ruins sex. It's that you get married, you have a family, you have kids, you have other responsibilities. So 18 or 19, then go, okay, yeah, sure, it ruins sex. But if you accept the fact that sex evolves throughout your lifetime, its role in your life evolves throughout the lifetime, and you just accept it for what it is, then no. It just means you've moved into a different stage. That's it.
Yes, it evolves over time.
Yeah. And you could actually argue it's less stressful than when you're younger. You run out looking for sex all the goddamn time, hunting like a goddamn, trying to satisfy those
like a fiend,
like an urge. And that's not just a male thing. Women do it too.
Yeah.
So they put on their I want to be with somebody clothes and go out to the bars.
It's so much easier for women.
But that has its own dangers, right?
It does.
I mean, even just psychological dangers. Forget the real physical world dangers. I mean, just to your own psyche.
I liked it. It didn't overburden me at all.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna leave that one with you then. Why are breadcrumbs in the kitchen bad for sex? Now, first, what they mean by breadcrumbs in the kitchen is having the little daily things that irritate people about your partner. Like, so you carry anger, resentment, and all that kind of stuff over into sex, to the bedroom. Because how can you not? Right?
Right.
Theoretically. I mean, there's a point to it, I suppose. I don't know. I think personally those things are individual. I don't think that we can paint them in such a broad brush. I mean, there's a point to it, but I don't necessarily know if it's anything near universal.
Oh. Okay.
The world is just too diverse. So, why are hotels metaphysically important?
Let's see. Checking into a hotel overnight is a solution to a long-term sexual stagnation. We can see the erotic side of our partner, which is often closely related to the unchanging environment in which we lead our daily lives. So you see your partner different. You're there for sex. So you're seeing each other as a sexual being.
I don't need to go to a hotel to do that. I just get irritated that I'm spending money to have to do something I could very well just as do well alone.
You're doing it in a strange place.
No, it's a hotel room. It looks like every other hotel room in the damn United States of America. There's nothing strange about it. So actually, in fact, hotel rooms, which is actually part of their appeal, is the least strange place. It's oddly, its sameness, its blandness is oddly comforting. You know, as bland and as bland as they are, it's odd. It's like a second, third home. We got one more. So why is adultery overrated? Well, because for the one thing, this is not worth the long term pain. You get a couple hours of Yahoo for how many days, weeks, months,
Years.
yeah, of regret. And that's if things go well. That's at best. At best, you have years of regret, lifetime of regret. At best. Because you violated something that you know damn well you shouldn't have done. Now, we're all human. It happens. But I think we all learned that there's better ways to deal with that. We just are. Because it's not even the pain that it causes other people. The pain that it causes you doesn't make it worth it. Even if all you care about is yourself, the pain it's going to cause you isn't going to make it worth it. Just from a purely selfish perspective. And then you add the rest of the world, all the other people you care about, the pain it causes them. You think it's ever going to pencil out in the long run? Maybe. If it actually goes 40 years, maybe. But what's the chance of that? And with that, we're going to send Lovey out on her break. And we will be right back after a message from our sponsor. Okay, while Lovey is out, I was going to have a philosophical rant. But I forgot what I was going to rant about. So, let's see. In these little halftime rants, you only get on the live stream, by the way. Well, except for this week. I'm going to put it on the blog. Oh, okay. My favorite author is Isaac Asimov, and he has a character in one of his Foundation books. I think it's the first one, Foundation, that has a motto: violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. So we ask ourselves, what does that actually mean? What does it actually mean? Well, it means that there is always a different way. That if you've let something deteriorate to the point where violence is the only answer you can think of, you have failed. There must be other answers. Because violence is not love, it's not progress, it's not helpful. It hurts people and breaks things. And that is never a good thing. And we are back. I would like to remind you, you can send Lubby a Dear Lubby letter about life, love, relationships to love@latenightLove.us. You can hit me up at Jazzrack on Twitter. You can find us on The Late Night Love on Facebook. And you can find us at latenightLove.us and various podcast networks. All right. Please do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, blah, 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 comment, and all the various things that people have to ask you to do because the algorithms demand it. Okay. So, what do we want to cover this next one here, Lem?
Questions.
We want to go stick down to the questions?
Yes, please.
All right. So, what's first?
Is it a mistake for me to ignore my daughter's 1-year age gap? They are 12 and 13. I only allow privileges if they can do it at the same time. A curfew, for example. I was warned that the youngest grows up too fast, while the oldest is too coddled.
Well, one, don't make a universal rule. You make these judgments based upon the maturity of the child.
Yeah.
The maturity, wants, needs, and desire of the child. And you do not tie them at the hip. They will tie themselves if they want to be. You don't need to tie them at the hip. In matter of fact, let them separate themselves some. Encourage it. You don't want them to be overly dependent on each other. And when kids are that close, they have a tendency to become overly dependent on each other. It makes sense because they're close enough in age where they can, use the same toys and be relatively the same level of development. But again, the danger isn't necessarily, maturing too fast. That's not necessarily the problem. The problem is you're not letting them become who they are naturally. That younger one is always going to chase his older brother, his older sibling. They always are. It's just the way younger siblings work. You don't need to encourage it. In fact, you should probably, try to back it off a little bit as best you can. And there's going to come a point where that older one is likely going to want some time by himself, some things of his own.
Yes.
Something that's his. He doesn't have to always share his life with his younger sibling. So treat them as individuals. And sometimes they'll be at the same spot, and sometimes they won't. And that's, kids are individuals. They're not products that are going to pop out at the end of the Let them evolve naturally. Okay, what's next?
My daughter is 32 and has lived away from home for 14 years. She lives halfway across the country from me and rarely answers my calls, texts, or emails. How involved should I be in her wedding beyond paying for it?
Well, one, you're not even required to pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to pay for it, great, pay for it. If you feel like it's an obligation or you want to do it, fine, not going to complain. But you're not obligated to pay for it. But one of these things, too, if you're going to pay for if you offer to pay for someone's wedding, still let them do it. You give them the budget. Here's how much I'm willing to pay. And that's it. You let them make the decisions within that budget. And if they have money to add to the budget, great. If they don't. But it's their wedding. Let them have it their way.
Yeah.
But you're not obligated to pay it. And it's their wedding. Your involvement in it is up to them. Now, the question I would have is, why is your daughter rarely answer calls? Why is she rarely involved? Why is that? There's a reason for it, and if there's something you can do to bridge that gap. Now, it may just be like me and my sons. We don't talk to each other very often until we need to, and it's got nothing to do with anything other than that's just how we are. You are the completely opposite. You and your daughters talk all the freaking time. And I'm going, what the hell do you always have to talk about?
I text them every day.
Right? And we're going, what do y'all have to talk about? We can't comprehend it. But it's just, there's nothing wrong with either way as long as we all understand that that's just because that's how we are and how it works and how we communicate.
Yes, each of my daughters has a different communication style. We text, but sometimes one is very consistent, one is kind of haphazard, and the other one prefers phone calls. So.
Yeah, it's just, there's not a universal thing. It's just the question is why. Is there an actual reason for it? Is there a reason you guys have become estranged? Maybe you're a bit of a penis, and maybe she has a bit of an attitude. Who knows?
Maybe there were some childhood issues that are unresolved.
Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe it's not even real. Maybe what happened is just a complete misunderstanding. You all haven't had a chance to talk about it because none of one's actually thought to ask. Yeah. So that's a different question. I think there's actually two separate questions. Is you don't have to pay for a wedding, but if you want to, it's great. But your involvement is still up to their wedding. I mean, I'm assuming if you're paying for it, they're going to want you to come. But other than that, and here's the thing, why would you want to be involved? Sit back, relax, and enjoy watching your daughter get married. Enjoy the experience. Enjoy that you get to participate at all because you've been estranged for 14 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another way to look at it. Okay, what's next?
Our daughter does well academically ever since she's little. She's in college now. She gets many awards and remain top in her class. But she doesn't like it when we tell others, even our closest relatives, to post it on Facebook. Why is that?
Because she's private and she doesn't like having high expectations set for her. If I were to put on my hat. She's a fundamentally private person. These kind of awards and things aren't really what's important to her. What's important to her is actually just doing the work and learning, which is why she's getting all these awards. and so she doesn't want me to have a big deal made out of it. Now, there may be some self-esteem issues worked in there. Maybe she doesn't feel worthy. And so, there's probably some of that in there. But you're not going to change that by posting these things on Facebook. Ask her. You can ask her about it. Hey, look, I'm perfectly happy to not post these things, and I'm perfectly happy to keep these things private. But can you do me a favor and try to explain to me why? Because I'm worried that maybe it's a self-esteem issue, and maybe there's something we can do to help. If that's the case, and if not, then it's fine. And, I just want to be clear. I'm respecting, your views here. I'm not going to violate your wishes. I'm going to follow your wishes. But please try to help me understand. So if there's a self-esteem issue or an anxiety issue or whatever it might be, maybe we can find a way we can help you through it.
Yeah.
I think would be the way to approach that. Because the most important thing in this thing is to respect her wishes. She's an adult. Respect her wishes. You do that, and then you can open the door to what's ever actually going on. And I do suspect there's probably some self-esteem issues, but you're not going to find that out until you respect her wishes. Okay.
What happens when a step-parent doesn't like a stepchild?
Well, not everybody's going to like each other. What happens is, do you act like an adult or do you act like a child? That's simple, the question. You have a choice at that point. Do act like the adult and put your personal feelings aside for the best of the child and the family, or do you act like a child and ruin everybody's life? That's your choices.
It's pretty cut and dry.
I mean, life is rarely binary, but this is one of those handful of times. where you've really got a choice. Because if you don't, and it's not going to be easy. Don't let me sit here like we're sugarcoating this thing. It's going to be tough. But you know what? Love and marriage is often tough.
I got so lucky with our blended family. I have 5 stepchildren. Well, they're not really steps because we're not married, but they're step in my heart. And I like all of them, and we have a warm relationship when we do talk.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we're extremely close, but they treat me like they treat you. If they have something to say, they say it. Otherwise, I don't hear from them.
That's just the way they are. It's just
Yeah.
And which is kind of we can't say anything because the apple don't fall far from the tree on that one. So, but y'all wouldn't know here as I'm sitting here blabbing to the world for an hour every week. Plus whatever else I do. So anyway, okay. What's the next one?
How do I tell a 4-year-old child we can't afford to buy them a birthday gift?
You tell them you can't afford to buy them a birthday gift.
But you can still make the day special with no money.
Yes, you can still.
You can go to the park. You can do a picnic. You can bake a cake.
Yeah, whatever you can do to make the day special.
Play games. Yeah. Have a little party.
Yeah, whatever you can do that is special for them that day, you can make it special. And if you can't afford the birthday presents, then it's fine. But the other little things then become more important.
Yeah.
That's all. Children don't actually need the presents. It's not the presents that they need. It's the expression of love. And the presents are just a symbol of that love. So just express your love. At 4, they're not going to really understand, but they'll well appreciate it later on in life. You'll actually be giving them a gift. They will be learning that it's not the thing that's important. It's the meaning behind the thing that's important. And they'll get that. And they'll get it sooner. But I also understand, I've been there, as a parent, it breaks your heart.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And if you do want to do what makes you feel better, is when you do have some money for a present, buy them one, wrap it up, and say, I'm sorry it's late. It'll be good enough. Okay.
During a job interview, how do you talk about your weaknesses in a way that gets you hired? Because they always ask you, what are your weaknesses?
Okay, and that's an open-ended question to get you to see what kind of BS answer you're going to give them. Because everybody knows they're going to get a BS answer, unless you don't give them one. You can always give them an honest answer. And here's the reason why. Because do you want to work for some place that you have to lie to get a job at? So you're really going to want to work there? Is that culture and that environment really going to suit you? Now, you can frame your weakness well. Like, look, I'm real empathetic. My greatest weakness is I'm real empathetic. I have a tendency to say yes all the time. But the benefit of that is I can relate well to help. And so my struggle is to make sure I balance it properly.
Mine was always I pay attention to detail sometimes too much. I get bogged down. I have to watch myself.
Yeah. See? So there's ways you can phrase these things. You can pick which weakness you want. One, you can pick which weakness you want to tell them, right? Because we all have many. So you can pick which weakness you can tell them, and then you can frame it in a way that says, "Look, I already know the solution. I just have to continue to monitor it." But you're also telling them, "Hey, this is what I have to watch out for if I'm going to hire them. What I'm paying attention for is them overworking themselves. Great, I can do that. That's an easy task as a manager. You know, relatively easy, rather than I have to make sure this person is motivated. No, I just have to make sure they don't overwork themselves. Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
So it's easier for a manager. So you have to remember, you have to put yourself into the position of the person who is hiring. What are they actually looking for? And they're looking to make their job easier. That's what they actually want. Okay.
I'm 26, never had a job, and ruled my life with wrong decisions. Is there a book that can help me change my life?
No. There are things you can do to help you change your life. And there's a number of the one that comes to mind, even though I don't want to necessarily recommend it, is there's this a future authoring program. You can just search future authoring program, and it's like a quiz or a test that you can help you kind of work through designing your future. You get to decide what your future looks like, but it helps you decide what you want your future to look like, and then helps you and then you can figure out what steps you need to take to get there. Because what happens at 26 with no job, no life, now you're literally at the bottom rung of life. And how do I get up from that? But there is a benefit to that. Right now is the best time to be 26 and never have had a job. Because you can walk into any fast food restaurant, any regular restaurant. You know, if you have a work ethic, you can get a job. All you have to do is show up on time and try. And if you're willing to do that, you can get your foot in the door. And then you start to work on yourself to make yourself better. Because what you need right now is just to get your foot in the door somewhere. You're not going to read a book is not going to solve your problems, but it can start you on a path so you can start solving problems. You can start knocking some of them down. And now is a perfect time to be needing a job because there's a labor shortage. So that's what you can do. And the next one is very similar, right? It's actually it's a very similar question, but from the other end of the perspective, right? 25 years old, feels like he's wasted his life. A software engineer doesn't know much about coding after 2 years of experience. What should you do? So here's someone who went to school, learned how to be a software engineer, gets into the real world and realizes that they didn't teach him anything. So now he feels like he's wasted his life, probably has a debt, a student loan debt, doesn't actually know how to code in the real world because that's not what they teach you at school. And so now what is he going to do? It's the exact opposite of the guy who's 26 who's never had a job. This guy's done everything he's correct, and he's in the exact same spot. And I'm going to give you the same piece of advice. Find out what you really want. Do you really want to be a coder? If you really want to be a coder, you don't have to go to school for that. You have Skillshare and all these other places online you can learn to be a coder. You can go to a Google or a Microsoft bootcamp and do it. Code something. Just sit down to code it. Yeah, you'll code it wrong the first 10 times. So what? If you want to be a coder. If you don't, well, you know, you've got the certificate that tells people you can accomplish tasks if you set your mind to it. So, change your job. Find out what you want to actually do and start heading towards that. That's all you can do. You're miserable, so you've got to change your life. You know that. And so you just got to figure out an outline of a plan and start doing it. You know, and in a sense, the 25-year-old, he's easier. He's shown he's able to self-motivate, unlike the 26-year-old who's feel like, you know, get the sense he's completely lost in life, hasn't done his direction yet. At least When you find a direction, you've shown that you can accomplish that goal. So at least you've got some history behind you to help you through it. But you can do the same thing. Go to the future. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of things like that. Just do some soul searching. Do some meditation. Get a life coach for a couple sessions. Whatever it takes. Okay, what's next? We got a couple minutes left.
My boss threatened to fire me because I usually leave work at 6 p.m. and don't stay until 8 or 9 like other employees. How should I handle this?
Let them fire you. Because one, they'll have to pay you unemployment because that's really not a fireable offense. And right now's a good time to be looking for another job. Why do you want to work someplace that doesn't respect you? He wants you to have more loyalty to the company than you have for your family and the rest of your life. Why do you want to work for something like that? Is the money really that good? Do you actually enjoy your job? Do you enjoy what you're actually doing? Do you like getting up and going to work every day? I somehow suspect not. You know, there's a YouTube guy I watch as Life After Layoff, and there's videos about there, how being in the wrong job can actually cost your career. If you're in the wrong job, it's time to move on. Getting the wrong job can set your career back 4 or 5 years, even if you only work there for 3 months. It's time to move on. Just not in an environment that's conducive to your. It's not the kind of environment you want to work in. You want to go to work, do your job, and go home. And he wants you to have more commitment than that. You have the conflict. Guess what? You're the one who has to change. You're the employee. You're the one who has to change. He can fire you, and because it's probably not a fireable offense, depending upon your state, you may actually have a case. I don't know. I'm no lawyer, so don't ask me that question. But I do know that in unemployment, if he fires you for that, you get your unemployment. So let him fire you. Don't let him bully you. Now is not the time to be bullied by an employer. There's too many jobs available, at least in the United States.
Do we have time for one more?
Yep.
Why can't most military personnel have long careers in the military?
Well, you're better at answering this one than I am, probably.
It's very stressful.
Yeah.
You write a check to the United States Army that says your ass is on the line. That's stressful. Now, a lot of people like that way of life. They like to be told what to do. They like the predictability.
They like this command structure and all that.
The structure, yes. Some people thrive. I did not do so well.
Yeah, I would think that there's part of the factor is there's a limited upper mobility.
Yeah.
There's only so many generals.
Well, there's a lot of steps between private and general, and there's a lot of things you can go for. You can stay busy, chasing ribbons. You go TDY. You could stay busy.
Yeah, but what if you're not a hoop jumper? What if you're someone who, like me, who just despises needless, pointless hoops?
You would not do well. I would not advise you to go. You would be in so much trouble all the time, you and your mouth.
Yeah, see, so my guess is it's not just, but it's also physically hard.
Yes, it is. They demand that you got to stay fit.
And it's hard on your family.
Fit to fight.
Hard on your family.
If you have a family, you can plan on there's going to be some times when you're going to be away. Yes.
So There you go. There's all the reasons why militaries don't have long careers. It's not a job that's conducive to long careers. Only a handful of people are going to want to have a long career in that type of environment.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with it. It is what it is. You go in, you do your time, you learn some skills, you get out of your little town, whatever the reason was for you
That was my reason.
Everybody has their reasons for going in. Some people, it's the only way I'm getting out of this little town. And so I know that personally most people I know went into the military for that reason. It was the only way they knew to get out of this little town. But some people, like our friend Oscar, he's looking for something more. He doesn't quite know what it is, and so he joined the National Guard. He actually shipped off this week to his basic.
Oscar's taking on the military?
Oh, they're taking on the Ohio National Guard.
Good for him.
Yeah, he's taking on the Ohio National Guard. So he's shipping out, and he's heartbroken because now he doesn't get to see his beloved for a while. And so it's hard. And
they're going to go back to you get to go back to old-fashioned letter writing. I had so many letters from my mother. She wrote me one every day.
Yeah. No, Oscar will be fine. He's a good egg. But that life is not for everybody, and that's what makes it hard. But careers aren't all for everybody. Whether it's sometimes you're not meant to be a coder. Sometimes you're not meant to work in an office that expects 12-hour work days instead of 8. Sometimes you're not meant to work in a highly structured environment. Something like your own podcast is a much better thing for your mental health, for your family, for your own personal wants and needs. And it's all okay. It's okay for us to be different. In fact, that's what makes the world beautiful. It makes it work. If we all wanted to do the same thing, then the things we don't want to do wouldn't get done. So we need people who like the things we don't like. We need this wonderful diversity of wants, needs, desires. And yeah, of course it's going to play out in sex. It's going to play out in the workplace. It's going to play out in how our relationships function. It's going to play out in how we raise our families. And we all learn from each other if we're willing to talk to each other. And that's enough talking for me tonight. Please do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. You can visit us at latenightLove.us, and please remember to love everybody.
Good night.